This video is to talk about what I think is important to review at the beginning of fourth and fifth grade in order to cover topics and make sure that students are set up and have refreshed their previous learning. I would say first things that you want to go over with them is just, I always think it's worth taking the time to review numerals and operation symbols with students. Even though they're in those higher level grades, we still want to hit those, and I'll give you an example of that here quickly. Then I think it's important to go over what is a base 10 number system and talk about being a base 10 system. What is that about? Talking again about place value in 3 and 4 digit numbers, 2, 3, 4 digit numbers. What is place and value? Reviewing those terms and what exactly those mean. Talking about reading numbers and noting how teen numbers are read backwards. So many of our EL students that are students with reading disabilities trip up on reading those numbers, reading commas, all those pieces are important. And then more specifically, how we read fractions or mixed numbers is an important piece to go back over, particularly half. So many students will come even in middle school and struggle with reading halves and half because it's something that isn't quite reinforced the way that it needs to be explicitly. And reading decimals. How do we read numbers with decimals in them? Of course, this varies a little bit based on whether they're coming into fourth grade or whether they're coming into fifth grade, but these are things I would generally try to hit, go over quickly in those first couple weeks of school. So I'm going to keep these to the side so to refer to them. I would go over with students our numerals, right? And talk about how we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 numerals. And isn't that interesting that we just continue to use these 10 numerals over and over and again? And isn't it also funny that the number 10 is actually made out of the numeral 0 and the numeral 1? And isn't that interesting that actually our highest numeral is 9? That's it. When we get to 9, we have to stop and start over and use a combination of 2 other numerals. So 9 is really that stopping point. We start with 0, which of course means nothing. And then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and we have to stop. That's as high as we can go. And then we have to combine a 0 and a 1, 1 representing that one group of 10, and build up again to where we get one group of 10 and 9 ones, and we have to stop again as we would move up through numbers. So again, the 9 is a little bit more important than people give it credit for. And as we think of why we only have 10, people will be like, okay, well, a lot of obvious reasons we might have 10 numerals is because we have 10 fingers and we have a base 10 system. But interestingly, 0 is not one of the things we count on because 0 means nothing. So we start with the quantity of 1 being here, and we get to 10, which is where we bundle, right? So isn't that interesting that we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and that is where we start to count in groups. And then we get to 10 tens, and then we start counting in larger groups of hundreds. And so that is why when we have our ones, and then we get up to, we go past 9 because we can't have more than one numeral in one place of a number. And then we start counting in groups of 10. Like if we're at the grocery store, we can handle a lot of things in our hands, but then after a while, we need to start carrying them in bags. So then we can start carrying them in bags that each bag has 10 items in it, but then we have 10 bags and that gets to be too much. So then we start carrying them in a cart, and maybe there'd be 10 bags in a cart, and that would get us up to 100, and then we start needing to put them in cars, right? And that's where we might get to 1,000. So if we think again, we're going to go into talking about place value, which is our next topic that we might be able to talk about with students. Now, I have a variety of place value mats that I work with students. I think these are really important to introduce and use on a regular basis. Here I'm going to be talking about a place value mat, one that has place value that has base 10 blocks represented, having the 1 unit and then the 10 rods, the 100 flats, and this is the 1 cube, and then back to a cube shape again for 1,000. I don't have my base 10 blocks with me, so I'm going to be using my craft sticks to talk about how I use these. Again, talking about how each place in a larger number represents a different value, because we can have a higher number. So we can have 7 1s and 2 10s. So I'm going to use my craft sticks here to show that I have 7. Oh, sorry. These are where my 10s go. All right. So 2 10s. And then I'm going to get my bunch of 1s over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, you might hear my husband playing guitar above me. And here are my 7 1s. So you might think, oh, 7 is a higher numeral, but each one of these only is a value of 1, whereas this one, each one of these is a 10, a group of 10. And so 2 of those has more value than those 7 1s. So using these place values and to group or ungroup or bundle or unbundle when we have to, make numbers and, subtract or add and regroup. So I would review using place value and building numbers as well. Now, another thing I think that's important to go over with students, and by the way, when you're using your base 10 blocks, as you use your base 10 blocks, I think a good investment to make is 1 centimeter cubes. 1 centimeter cubes are really helpful for those students who need that hands-on experience of taking apart a 10 rod or even building up to 100 flat. They really allow them to enact that process of creating groups of 10 or even 100 or undoing them. And these 1 centimeter cubes allow them to do that. You can get them on Amazon. And I also want to show you that I use my craft sticks to actually go ahead and build all the way up to 1,000, so they can get a sense of that quantity of 1,000 versus just 1, and really get a sense of that. And the kids really enjoy that as well. Now, when it comes to reading numbers, this is where we get into those big numbers and with the comma. But one thing that so many students struggle with is when they get to those teen numbers and putting in that comma and learning how to do it that way, but is they go 300, I'm sorry, I'm not doing a really good job here, 3,435, you're always reading in this direction, 3,425, again, reading in this direction, but when you get to the teens, 3,400, and they think they're going to keep going in this way, and you've got to teach them when the teens are here, it's 3,415. And notice 15 is even stranger, because with this one we get 17, and then we can get 18 and 19, but 15 isn't 15, it's 15. 14 is fine, but 13 is weird too. It's not 3-teen. So those teen numbers become a real obstacle actually for students with learning disabilities. So that is one thing to go over and talk about them. Now, reading fractions is another thing where I have a place value that can place value mat to support them. I have one that has them that actually has 10s and 1s and a fraction of 1s, and then I have one that has 1s and a fraction of 1s. However you want to do this when you're talking about mixed numbers, I'm going to do one here that just has 1s and fractions of 1s. What I often do is you build it, you say, what's it made of? It's made of 3 1s and 1 of 2 equal parts. And what's its name? Its name is 1 and And then you can teach them before fractions, they're allowed to say and 1/2, right? So this would be an example of reading it. What's its name? 1 1/2. So teaching them explicitly how to read those fractions. This one I broke not very well into 4 pieces. So I might say, what do I have here? I have 1 1 out of 4 equal parts. What's its name? 3 1/4. So again, I have 1 out of 4 equal parts, and its name is 1/4. And if I got 3 out of 4 equal parts, that would be 3 wholes and 3 out of 4 equal parts, and its name is 3 3/4. So practice at reading numbers is an important skill, and you can build it up, and this place value mat allows you to do this. And you can do this with, using different shapes. You can use circles and use things, but the craft sticks are nice in order because you can break them apart and use them for that. And then sometimes with base 10 things, you can actually build some of these with clay or Play-Doh and then cut them into pieces and use those actually as a fraction as well. And I've done that with my students. Finally, when we're talking about reading decimals, this is a little bit more of an in-depth decimal place value mat that goes further, because this one actually has thousands, hundreds, tens, ones, and then it has the decimals of tenths, hundredths, and thousands. A little bit more elaborate than some people need to, but again, it allows them that practice of if they want to read and review numbers like this one, they would say, okay, what is the number we're reading here? 23 6/10, right? This would be practice reading this. And let's read it as a fraction, or let's, what it's made of. It's made out of 2 10s, 3 1s, and 6 out of 10 equal parts. What's its name? 23 6/10. So these place value mats are very helpful for reviewing and laying out numbers and reinforcing that place value and how, what those numbers are made of, their various parts. Hope this helps. Thank you so much. Bye.